In this journey of transformation learning, it will be vital to keep competencies aligned with business growth. And talk about aligning competencies with business growth, please welcome Dr. Vishnupriya Raghavan, Head Products and Solutions, StackRoute, in discussion with Nagarathna Babanagar, Head of House of Talent, Bosch Global Software Technologies, Priya Kanduri, CTO and VP Cybersecurity, Happiest Minds Technologies, Priya Singh, AVP and Head Technical Learning, COE, Zensar Technologies, Rohan Kudav, AVP and Head Product Management and Delivery, BFSI, Zensar Technologies. Over to you, Dr. Raghavan.
Thank you, Dilip. That was such an energetic welcome. I hope we all live up to it now. So, welcome everyone. Now, with the dynamic business environment that we are all in today, with the challenges that were probably unimaginable even a few years ago, a large number of organizations are on the path to transform themselves, and we have to become more adaptive to change. Now, this was the aim behind which we planned this session, right? Because if we approach this from a strategic perspective, then all of us have an opportunity to make talent management an integral part in the way we prepare for the next biggest challenge. In fact, in the CXO panel yesterday, we had leaders from IBM, Zensar, and ANZ. Pramila, COO of Zensar, made a point that talent management is no longer just the business of HR. While HR will provide us with the frameworks and techniques and everything, each of us, managers and leaders, have to make every attempt on getting the right talent, groom them to see the organizational vision, and align the talent and their contribution to business objectives. Now, if you are able to do this, and if they are able to impact business growth and demonstrate the competence that they bring, that they have, then there is no looking back for any of us, isn't it, right? So the link here that really needs to be strengthened is clearly aligning people's strategies to business objectives. And for this, competencies have to be identified, defined, clearly in alignment with business priorities. Because when competencies, when they become very well defined and can be used as a metric for performance, it will really help translate organizations' values into employee behaviors. Now, I strongly believe that to discuss this, there could not be a set of professionals better than what I have today in my panel. Priya Kanduri and Rohan, experts in cybersecurity and product management functions respectively. They are so diligent about, Priya is so diligent about developing architecture talent and cybersecurity talent for Happiest Minds. And Rohan, from my experience, work experience with him, extremely passionate about developing product owners and business analysts for Zensar, and he heads the product management function. Nagarathna, as you would have seen her title itself, she is the head of House of Talent at Bosch. I mean, I don't think anyone can get a better title than that, Nagarathna, and so is your passion. And then we have, Priya Singh, who's a strong believer of continuous professional development herself, and she continues to publish from real-time face recognition to IoT and ML for smart cities latest. So I have a great panel in front of me, and a very, very warm welcome to all the 4 distinguished professionals that I have today to discuss on how we align competencies to business growth. Now, with that introduction, I'm going to start the first round of questions to all the 4 panelists. Now, we have spoken about the alignment that is clearly required with competencies to business growth. Now, let's talk about business growth first. What is business growth, or what is organizational growth, or it could be the business unit growth that these professionals have in front of them? And then how do we align it to the critical roles and competencies? So can I request the panelists to go one after the other, a very quick round of what business growth means to them, to their organization. Priya Kanduri, would you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you, Vishnupriya. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and for making us part of this panel. From a business growth point of view, many of you may be aware, Happiest Minds, we've been a startup last 10 years into operations, and last year we had the most successful IPO, which is termed as the biggest in Asia in the last decade. What's really helped us from a business growth perspective is definitely, of course, we are a technology-oriented organization, technology and competencies. And specifically in the last 2 to 3 years, I would say the business growth aspects for us have been predominantly the domain of cybersecurity, one of the fastest growing industries for us and across the globe, cloud, and then digitalization, and finally automation. These four, if I have to list, there are many other areas that have helped us grow. But the inorganic growth and the kind of fast-paced growth that we've had all belong to these areas. Cybersecurity, as we are all aware, especially 2021, it was the busiest on record for cybersecurity market in terms of investments and strategic activity. Ransomware attacks have ever been on the rise. So every enterprise is investing into cybersecurity and cyber attack prevention, and that's been one of our fastest growing areas. Cloud again, cloud for more availability, cloud for faster response, cloud for significant customer reach, and all competence aligned with cloud adoption, your Azures and AWS and GCPs and cloud provisioning skills. They're all again on the fast track for us from a business growth perspective. And then, of course, we are a born agile, born digital company. We take pride in being one of those born digital organizations, and we help our customers achieve digital transformation. So, technology advancements such as your chatbots and connected devices, analytics, AML have also been very critical for organization business growth. And finally, of course, automation. The world doesn't run without automation anymore. It's the age of hyper automation. All organizations are focused on automating everything that's automatable. Automation for efficiency, automation for accuracy, for cost reduction. So all the areas that align with digital process automation, such as your customer experience, omni-channels, dynamic case management, RPA, cognitive automation, security orchestration. These areas again have been the competencies aligned very closely with the kind of business growth that we have had, and they will continue to be the top 4 or 5 areas that we will be focusing on in the coming years, because market with respect to these areas is not going to cool down anytime soon. If I have just list them: cybersecurity, cloud, digital transformation, and automation.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you. Yeah, great. Can I request Rohan to go next? Rohan, if you could talk briefly about what business growth at Zensar is.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rohan Kudav, and I head the product management function for BFSI customers as part of the delivery organization within Zensar. So as an organization with our focus on customer needs, last year we have reorganized ourselves around a few focused strategic growth areas, as we call it. So it includes experience services, it includes data, it includes analytics, and so on. And my co-panelist Priya Singh, who also heads the technical COE, learning COE for us, she's going to talk more about it. As for me, my focus has been predominantly on product management, building competencies around product management, as that is one area that we see has got tremendous demand. There are customers asking for it. There is an uptick in terms of the way the movement of a typical requirement gathering exercise happens from being pure play tactical to strategic, and that's where product management plays a very important role. Product mindset plays an important role, and I think that's an area that we are seeing, especially given that a lot of our customers are focused on developing products and services around their customers and their customer needs. There is a certain amount of customer empathy, centricity, and product thinking that is coming in with respect to these developments, and I think that's predominantly one area that we want to focus on. Now, again, when I say product management, there are two aspects to it. On the one hand, we are trying to acquire and harness talent. We are trying to upskill, enable them for our customer needs. That's one part of it. But on the other hand, we are also building frameworks. We are building accelerators, toolkits, which will help us to sort of position ourselves as differentiators with the customers. So these are some of the expectations which are coming in from the customers. They are expecting partners to now have a seat on that strategy side. So that's predominantly what our focus is going to be. I'm extremely honored to be and pleased to be a part of this panel discussion. So look forward.
Thank you, Rohan. Absolutely. I mean, I think you are bang on with the changes that are happening with the agile projects and everything coming in. I think the product management function itself is going through a big change. And I think for you, that is going to be a key area for growth. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nagarathna from Bosch, who do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Priya. Again, everybody, good afternoon. It's a great opportunity to be and if you look at the trends, and most of you have been using cars or you're traveling by car, shift, from the IC engines. So the major growth areas, coming up with electric vehicle. Second one is the autonomous driving, and these are the three areas that we focusing on. And in idea set, cybersecurity, IoT, big data. See, because the line is increasing tremendously. Also, and the hacking happening. So cybersecurity are major areas where we are going to be, along with the domains. So this is going to be my current job is to strategize growth and profitability through competitive levers. So our focus is getting into newer areas, new technology, upskilling and reskilling our existing, make them ready for the new age. So thank you. Thanks,
Nagarathna. I know I think Bosch India is one of the huge setups outside of Germany. And I think Bosch itself is going through a lot of restructuring and transformation initiatives. So I think your key growth areas are very, very clear in terms of strategizing for all of these technologies. And thank you, Nagarathna. Priya Singh, Zensar.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Priya. Hi, everyone. I'm Priya Singh, and I head Technical Learning COE at Zensar. Just to add what Rohan mentioned about our strategic growth areas, as part of my role at Zensar, I take care of enterprise-wide learning in technical domain and product and project management areas globally. Being a service organization, we are largely driven by technology needs of our customers. So we have recently reorganized ourselves, as Rohan mentioned, as per our customer focus areas like advanced engineering skills, data engineering skills, data analytics, AI, ML, experience-led technologies, UI, UX, cloud infrastructure, and ERP. Specifically, if I say ERP, it's more into Salesforce, Oracle Cloud, and SAP. Now, these are the areas which are, we call them as strategic growth areas or SGOs. So SGOs are more of horizontals from a technology and project processes point of view, whereas we have three verticals in Zensar from domain side, which are majorly focused on BFSI, high-tech manufacturing, and customer retail. So these are the three domain areas. Apart from this, we are also doing deep research in the areas like AI, ML, blockchain, quantum computing, metaverse, and many more with our CTO team, which is called as Zen Labs team. So business growth for us means we are on top of these technologies, domain processes, and of course, along with continuously developing our key competencies in these areas. So specifically from my role perspective, the key focus areas for talent transformation is that we make sure that we have a continuous learning culture. We make sure that we have individual learning plans. We make sure that we have some informal learning venues provided to our associates, especially in this remote environment. Yeah, so thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Priya. So I think we have heard all the way from cybersecurity, cloud, automation, AI, and of course, the most importantly, the learning culture that Priya brought in, right? I mean, and Rohan spoke about the product management function itself, and the growth that has to happen alongside a lot of these functions. Now we've spoken about what business growth means to each one of you in the panel, right? Now the point is, let me ask this question to Priya Kanduri, because you spoke about a very, very new emerging tech like cybersecurity, right? Now I think cybersecurity by itself was what, as people say, was born out of paranoia, right? Now many assume that it's about mitigating threats, reducing risk, right? But beyond a point, if it can be repositioned very well, it can be a growth enabler by itself, right? Now, what comes to your mind, Priya? Like if you have to, Priya Kanduri, right? If you have to build competencies to deliver business growth, because you identified the business growth areas. Now, if you have to list 3 to 5 top competencies absolutely critical for business growth in the direction that you just said, what would those be? 3 to 5 top competencies.
3 to 5 competencies. Yeah, if I have to align again with the areas that I've already mentioned as the areas of growth, Vishnupriya. Customers are focusing on, like I said, more cloud adoption. They are focusing on analytics for better insights. They're focusing on automation. They're focusing on digital transformation. And with all of it, there's also an increased demand to be able to take business to the customers and be available to everybody from anywhere. Employees are remote, customers are remote. This is what all organizations are facing now. And in each and every one of these aspects, cybersecurity becomes an inbuilt expectation from the customers to be able to protect your enterprise's reputation, to avoid penalties, to instill the confidence in your customers that the data that they provide to you, the accesses that you are giving to them are safe and secure. Along the same lines, the top security areas would vary. Number one, I said, prevent cyber attacks. The skills that would help us simulate breaches, simulate attacks, which we call in our cybersecurity language as red teaming. That's a very, very critical skill. This skill is predominantly focused on imitating the attacker behavior, ethical hacking, trying to attack enterprise networks and applications sitting outside the network. That's what we call as breach and attack simulation or red teaming. That's a very, very critical skill. It's been critical, but now it's more critical than ever because of the number of ransomware attacks and phishing attacks and spoofing attacks that we have on enterprises networks today. And second is faster response. One is, of course, you try to prevent, which is what I just talked about. Second is detection. How quickly can you detect an attack that's happening on your network, which is again built into all other business growth areas that I talked about. And there's so much of digital transformation. There's an explosive growth in the number of non-human entities that make up modern applications and enterprises. You have bots and connected APIs, AI credentials. Each of these services need to be authenticated, monitored. So technologies in terms of machine identity monitoring and security management, that's very critical in today's environment. And number three, if I have to list, is quicker response, automation. Bring in as much automation into security incident management as possible. There is no time. If there is an attack progressing, if the enterprise network if there is a breach, it propagates and can shut down the whole network in a matter of minutes. There's no time for somebody to detect and manually go and figure out what happened, analyze, fix something, close a IP address, close a URL. There's no time. So as much automation as possible. So from the time the detect happens, within seconds, the incident should be closed and resolved. Those automation skills, very specific to security, which we call as security orchestration and automation, SOAR. That's a very critical area once again. And a fourth area, if I have to list, is identity specific security. Identities again are most attacked today. That's the top technique. Identity, misused credentials and attacks on AD are the topmost techniques used in breaches today. So how do we protect your Active Directory? It all comes under something called identity access management. That is the top 4 area. And number 5, obviously, is remote work security, endpoint security areas. How do we protect the endpoints? Because endpoints don't sit within the network anymore. They've all gone out of the enterprise network. And remote work has just become the new norm. Work is remote work. How do we protect those endpoints? What are the new areas, new technology? Endpoint detection, automation, response, encryption technologies, continuous monitoring of your endpoint devices. It all comes under a specific branch of cybersecurity called endpoint security. That's the top 5 area that I would say. These are the 5 areas that if I have to list.
Thank you, Priya. So I think if I really have to sum up what you said, the top two that really came from what you said was, one is embedding analytics and the other is the automation mindset. Clearly, top two competencies that is required for business growth in terms of these emerging tech areas, right?
Very much.
Priya Singh, what is your take on the learning culture that is required? Now, these are the competencies that we establish for a very critical role. So what is your take on the learning culture that is required?
Yes, sure. So I completely echo with Priya on the security concerns in remote working areas. What additionally comes to my mind when it comes to overall culture of the organization or the learning culture of the organization is how do we engage our hybrid workforce? I think that's the challenge that we all are facing these days, especially in last couple of years when there are sudden workplace changes. The employees need to wear multiple hats these days. They need to stay relevant like never before. I think we have seen that happening in the industry. So while employees these days are taking more ownership of their development, we have seen that in many L&D reports that the overall learning hours have increased in last couple of years. But the challenges are that people are remote and they are learning remotely. So when people are working in remote locations, there is a great risk of proximity bias, I would say. So which is not good for our culture, which is not good for our learning culture. So we as a L&D professional, and specifically as my role being an L&D professional, I think this is one thing that we have to make sure that training can be a place where we can bring people together, where they can come and learn together and stay together. So we have to make sure that we give a right avenues to people for learning. And to quickly share, some of these, some of the initiatives that we have started taking recently at Zensar to make sure that our hybrid workforce is engaged well. One of them is guilds and communities. So going back to the historical days where guilds used to be, in the ancient time, they used to be the core specialist, the craftsmen, and they used to be the people who used to actually bring a lot of control and best practices to the trading community. So keeping, making sure that that concept we apply in the industry today. We are making sure that we create guilds with the high potential employees at Zensar, who are the ones who need special attention, who are the ones who need to be engaged very thoroughly. And because they are the ones who are going to, share their knowledge with the larger community. They are the ones who will help others grow with their expertise and knowledge. So that's how we have identified around 50 plus guilds and communities so far in the organizations, and we are launching them very, very soon. Some of them are already launched. So, these communities are going to grow. The whole purpose of these communities is to make sure that people come together. There is knowledge sharing happening, there's co-creation happening, there's idea generations happening, the point of views are shared. So this is what we are really, really focusing on. And we have done some successful programs already, and we have seen a good success where people are coming together and doing this in a very successful remote environment. The other very important part of our hybrid workforce is freshers community. So these are the people in last couple of years. All of us have been hiring freshers in remote areas. They are work from anywhere freshers. They are the ones who have never seen the office. They have never experienced the learning culture or overall culture of the organization in a physical environment. I, in my role, have been teaching for last almost a couple of decades now, and I have seen these freshers flourishing during their training days, specifically when we were in the physical environment, and I've seen them making relationships for lifelong. But when it comes to the environment that we have, which is more remote, freshers definitely need much more attention than what we used to give them earlier. So here, what we have tried doing at Zensar is we have made sure that we have more of hackathons planned. We have increased the frequency of our hackathons. We made sure that they come together as part of this hackathon. They are very well connected with the business even before they go to business. They get first-hand feedback from the business leaders. We also make sure that there are a lot of leadership connect calls planned with the freshers. There are one-on-one buddy programs. So the intensity of these programs we have increased in last few months. and which is very critical for keeping our hybrid workforce engaged here. And the third and very important part is in our regular trainings also, it's very important that we have more of role plays, more of interactive sessions, more of projects work, people there where they come and work together. So a very good example of that is Dr. Priya, we have done with NIIT. We have done recently we have completed a training on product management. I'm sure Rohan is going to talk a lot about it, where it was all about role plays and it's all about coming together and doing a lot of hands-on activities. So this group, I am very happy to say that this group now is just after the training, they are now so engaged that they are actually a community now. They have come forward and helped our freshers in the hackathons, and they have mentored them very well. So that's the kind of culture I think we need to make, and training has a very critical role to play.
Absolutely. Thank you, Priya. I think you spoke about collaboration, co-creation, sharing, knowledge sharing, and helping others grow, and a lot of ownership. Right? Absolutely. In fact, when you told me about guilds and communities, you also spoke about 50 different skills, and you spoke about at least more than a dozen communities, right? So the number was mind-boggling actually, because when you're talking about 50 skills that you've identified for guilds and communities, I remember I was learning, reading up a report by Chief Learning Magazine or something like that, where the title of a topic of a particular article was half-life. I was like, half-life is something I remember reading in my 8th grade chemistry, right? It's about radioactivity and isotopes and what is half-life doing in a magazine for learning. Very beautifully said that how skills and characteristics make up the competence, and they are dividing it into 3 different perishable skills, about half-life of less than 2 years. And they are saying semi-durable skills about less than 5 to 7 years, and durable skills, which are, more forever, more the foundation, right? Now, this actually forms the basis of my next question, because of the point that you put about 50 skills, and out of which we don't know how many are perishable and how many have to be enhanced. And so this forms the basis of my next question to, in fact, Rohan and Nagarathna. Because when skills change, when they perish, the roles associated with some of these skills also can perish, or they can change and new roles can come in, right? So, Rohan, this is to you, because, your product management function as such, you said, has gone through a lot of changes. So what roles are really becoming redundant? What roles are getting enhanced? And what are the new roles probably we didn't have before, and you're needing it right now, right? I think this question is to you, both Rohan and Nagarathna.
Sure, Dr. Priya. So the way I see it, right, there are typical influencers. So if we were to classify these influencers into various categories broadly, there are 3 categories that come to mind. One is that there has been a shift in the organizational mindset, the way the leadership thinks. That's one. Second is there are changes in the way business models are emerging. We spoke about customer-centric development of products and features. And the third is the change in the way implementation methodologies are coming in, execution methodologies. We are moving from waterfall to agile. So these influencers are in a way reshaping some of the existing roles. And to a very large extent, they're also redefining a few additional ones, right? So if we were to take an example of each, so we start with the organizational mindset. And we all know that traditionally, organizations believed that they wanted to keep the strategy closer to themselves. They would involve the partners and service providers only in terms of execution or implementing them. But this scenario is changing today, right? We see that organizations are willing to be challenged on their own thought process. They are sitting together with their service providers. The service providers are in fact helping them putting together a vision, a strategy, and even a roadmap to execute. So there is therefore that change that we see in the mindset, which is making organizations leverage their vendors, their partner experiences in designing potential outcomes, and also to engage with them right from strategy until the execution, the whole phase of it. So this change effectively also means that the service providers will also have the onus to upskill their workforce in a way that they can now start participating, influencing, and playing a more advisory or consultative role with respect to their customers, right? And this is necessary across all skills. I'm not talking about any particular skill, but across skills, this is happening, right? Ability to see the bigger picture, appreciate the domain and the business of the customer, communicate effectively. These are some of the aspects that the workforces have to be oriented on, and more so at the junior levels, right? And this is one change that is coming in. there is also a need to redefine a few existing skills, and they have, in fact, some of the few existing skills have also emerged over a period of time. One classic example, if I were to quote something which is very close to me, is that of a business analyst function. Now, traditionally, a BA was effectively an order taker, right? The BA as a skill always had the strategic element to it, but the leverage of the skill was more done for tactical purposes, right? We know BA as somebody who does a liaising between engineering teams and the business teams, and that's what was being leveraged. But if you look at how the BA function has emerged over a period of time, today a BA is expected to question, is expected to debate, is expected to challenge, is expected to ask the why, evaluate the ROIs, and advise the customer on whether a specific requirement needs to be considered or not. So I think that's how it is impacting some of the existing functions. The next influencer, which we spoke about, was the changing business models. And like I said in my introduction, we are seeing a lot of shift that organizations have today. They are developing products and services which are more customer focused, right? There is customer centricity as a theme, which is influencing product development, and design thinking obviously is at the forefront as we see new features being built. So all of this is resulting into creation of new roles. As an example, customer journey expert. We've never heard of a role called customer journey expert in the past. Obviously, it existed in some form. We had process modelers, but process modelers were essentially, focused on creating operationally efficient processes, for the customers and for the organizations. But here, as a customer journey expert, you have that added element of having empathy to your customer requirements. Bringing in their pains, their needs in the right way, and help design products which will improve the customer stickiness for the organization. So that's where it has emerged, from a traditional, sort of a process modeler role into a more customer journey expert role. The third thing that we spoke about was the impact of changing execution models. We are all moving from, most of the organizations moving from waterfall to agile ways of working and development. Now, this necessitates building products and features in kind of sort of meaningful increments. Each increment, although small, has to be complete in itself from beginning to end. So what this means is that as an end user, somebody who is going to be using an end product needs to see how that product is going to look like very early on before the development begins as part of the sprint. What it also means is that you need experts who will be able to actually help visualize this for the end user. And that's where the role of product designers, UI UX experts is getting a lot of significance. So overall, I think in terms of, if I were to summarize the point that I'm trying to highlight, is that influencers are and will continue to in a way reshape and redefine the roles. Organizations will have to invest in terms of upskilling their workforces in order to be able to meet these demands which are coming in from the customers because of the changes to the ecosystem, and to be able to meaningfully partner with them in the transformation process.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely echo that with you, Rohan, because I started my career as a business analyst, right? I mean, BAs are no longer just story writers responsible for writing user stories and acceptance criteria, right? A BA in an agile team today has to support the product owner with decision making, as you said, and much more. But great. I think we are really on top of the time. We will just go with Nagarathna, and there are also a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So Nagarathna, as we spoke, you're heading the entire engineering management function. Now, as you said, you're from a very niche or a very specialized kind of an industry, right? You're talking about automotive, mobility solutions, consumer goods. You're talking about building technology in Bosch and all of that, right? So what is very critical for you, and any role that has changed, and or if any role is getting enhanced, what is that one critical competence for your initiatives? Nagarathna? I think
sorry. Sorry. I think I was on mute. So you're able to hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay. Like what Priya just mentioned about the redundancy of the roles. Yes, there are quite a few roles that are becoming redundant, even in the embedded and automotive industry. One big thing that I will connect back to what Priya said is due to the automation and the DevOps that is coming in. And because of this, there are quite a few roles which are manual testing or the integrators that are there. These are the roles that are becoming redundant. And, we have to realize these roles that are becoming redundant and start upskilling and reskilling the people ahead of, before it becomes too obsolete, that is one thing. So one typical example which I would like to say is the CAN engineers, where, due to automation, we don't need as many CAN engineers as required. So we used to have close to about 700, 750 people, and now we have reduced to about 150, 200 people. So we have already taken steps much earlier in the life cycle and started building, the new skills for these people. Coming to what skills have been enhanced. It is a very interesting question. In my view, most of the roles, like what you said, the business analysts also, most of the roles are getting enhanced. The focus has shifted from transactional value delivery to, it is more driven in terms of content-based activity. My suggestion is, like, each individual in any role, they have to start thinking in terms of what is the purpose behind what I'm doing and how I can deliver the value to the product, to the environment, to oneself also. So this becomes a very important thing, that it is a continuous learning journey for all of us, and we should start delivering, value. So for me, enhancement is for every role, and we have to, look at purpose behind it and move out from the transactional, I do it and my job is done. That's not what we are looking forward for. So that is one very important point. And the third point, what you said, like, what are the new roles we didn't have before and what we are doing now? Yeah, this question is very, very apt for the current situation, where we are seeing a big paradigm shift in the market and the competitors as well. Coming from an automotive industry, I just like to quote one example over here. Currently, the competition for us is not from the automotive industry per se. It's not that BMW is competing with Huawei or Audi or anything. See, we are competing with somebody like Google's of the world, because Google is going to be manufacturing a car. So in a car, the number of lines of code is increasing drastically, and the electronics and the mechanics that is there is reducing, because so we are investing in the new roles, which are software architects along with the domain architects. So that is a big investment that we are doing, so that, we stay in the market and we compete with our competitors and the new competitors, I would like to say. And what Rohan mentioned was on the, one point he brought up on the business model. So I'll just quote one example of the business model over here, even in the automotive industries. With the onset of Ola and the Zoom cars, there is a big change, a shift in the business models. People decide on which car they would like to drive when, they could decide that today I'm going to drive a BMW or a Ferrari, because, these Zoom cars are available, you can take it. So they can go ahead and start, driving this. So the business models are changing. So I would like to connect this business model change to the role changes that we are foreseeing. So earlier, the OEMs were only hiring the domain experts, etc. And now we see that the OEMs are hiring, people from B schools to study the behavior of the people, so as to adapt to the business needs and change the business model, so that, we are ready for anything that is changing in the market with the competition and the technology. So I would summarize that, change is a must, and we all need to, move with a big speed to adapt to the change. Thank you, Priya.
Thanks, Nagarathna. I think you answered one question from the audience as well, right? I mean, how do you really align competencies and establishment of that to the changing market conditions? And you really spoke about how you're actual competitors are really not the automotive industries. So I think you also answered one of the questions right there. And the other important point I really liked about what you said was knowing the purpose. And I think that was really the crux of the talk today. If I know the purpose, right? I mean, I think all of us have heard this narrative, right? For many times, a man went up to 3 people working. And then the first guy says, oh, what are you doing? And then I'm laying bricks. The second one says, I'm building this wall. And the third person says, I'm building this cathedral, right? So that is really the difference, right? You know the purpose, you see the big picture. And I think that's you're just aligning with whatever you're doing to the business impact or whatever you can bring to the table, right? And I think it was an absolute pleasure hearing all of you, right? So I'll wrap up the session, with summarizing with all whatever you've said. And see, as professionals eager to contribute to our businesses, I think it's very clear that we have to nourish our competencies continuously from whatever I've heard from all of you, right? With the variety of new skills, knowledge, attitude, as these are the ones that are going to help us develop those capabilities that is aligned with whatever our career path is. And the career path can continue to change. In fact, the next session is going to be on composable enterprise, right? The role of talent in a composable enterprise. We have heard about a digital enterprise, we have heard what a cognitive enterprise is, and now comes a composable enterprise and the talent that is required for that. So the career path today is something, and then that can get enhanced or it can get redundant, as some of you said. But I mean, if we were to, take an analogy of, say, a garden or a tree, I mean, I'm an avid gardener, so which is why I take these examples, and people who are gardeners or have a love for trees and plants will be able to see this. I would probably put all the durable skills that we spoke about as the roots of the tree or the strong stem, right? And then the semi-durable really form the branches, and the more perishable ones, because Priya Singh spoke about 50 skills in guilds and communities, and these are probably the leaves that fall every time and spring new with changing conditions and changing seasons, right? But the objective that we really want is to really grow the tree in the right way, not just the root or the leaves or the stem, right? So when it finally bears the fruit is really when we have aligned the competencies to business impact or business growth, right? And this is where I think bringing the skills, competencies, learning, and one's career comes together, and when it really results in business impact. And I think with that, thank you everyone. And I think let this thought set all of us and our organizations for success in 2022. And we at NIIT will continue to support you as a strong partner in all your learning endeavors. Thank you once again. Thank you for being such a terrific panel today. Thank you. And Dilip, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raghavan and the panelists, for a wonderful discussion.